meeting to order for a roll call. Why don't you go ahead and around the table there.
Morris.
Yes.
Lee.
Here.
Cottle.
Here.
Councilman.
Here.
Great. In our first order, we're going to
Okay.
some reverb. Meeting to order for a roll call. Why don't you go ahead and around the table there. That happened once before. Here.
We have a recording going on.
Great. In our first order, we're going to
I was trying to think, do we have one?
We don't actually have one. Meeting to order for a roll call. Why don't you go ahead and around the table there. That happened once before.
Here. We have a recording going to in the process of procedure.
Great movie.
Is that copy due? Oh.
I forget what the solution was the last time.
Reboot.
Meeting adjourned. Any word from Kurt if he's
Yes,
coming?
I spoke to him about 10 minutes out.
Can we have them not bend up the mic?
Oh, yes, sir.
All right, so go ahead. Well, first order that we're going to need to go into executive session, so I'll ask the town attorney to bring us into that.
The form of the motion would be to enter closed session to discuss two matters. One is potential leases as a disposition of real property, and the second is probable litigation, specifically with Finley Construction, under Virginia Code Section 2.23711, A3 and A7.
Looking for a so moved?
So moved.
Second.
Second by Councilman Morris. Discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Great, thank you all.
To certify that to the best of each member's knowledge, only those matters that are lawfully exempted from open meetings under the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, and only those items that were identified in the motion preceding that closed session were heard or discussed by the council in the closed session to which this certification pertains.
So moved.
Second.
Morris.
Yes.
Lee.
Yes.
Cottle.
Yes.
Councilman.
Yes.
All right. Our next item is our VRE presentation. The pleasure of having Mr. Doug Allen, is it? Yes. Right.
Got it? Well, thank you very much for having us. My name is Doug Allen. I'm the CEO for the Virginia Railway Express.
Thanks for
And it is our pleasure to be here. We really thank you for giving us some time to come and talk to you about our plans for extending VRE. Christine Hefner is with me. She's the project manager. I'm going to do a little bit of introduction, and then she's going to give a presentation. But about a year and a half ago, our board adopted a long-range plan, and part of that plan, a lot of that plan had to do with what do we do to grow the system. We operate two lines, as you may know, Fredericksburg line and Manassas line. Both of them are doing very, very well. Our performance has been very, very good, 95% on time. Our riders are happy with the service, very reliable. And because of that, our service is at capacity. So we're looking at ways to grow capacity, add more trains, add more cars. This summer, we're going to open an extension down into Spotsylvania County. And as part of our long-range planning process, we started about 2.5 years ago. We talked about where else would we want to expand to, and the consensus was, and the board approved, we need to see if we can get out to the Gainesville Haymarket area. So after we got that long-range plan done, we began developing some funding to do the next phase of an effort. I know it's been looked at a number of times. And so we've got the funding in place to do the planning and engineering and environmental study. And we are gearing up to begin that effort. And as we do that, we want to work closely with everybody along the proposed alignment, of course, including the town of Haymarket. So that's why we're out here to share information with you. Christine's going to walk through the presentation and kind of give you information, but we're here to dialogue too and answer questions. So as we get into it, ask questions. After we're done, ask questions. Again, we're beginning a process, and we want to make sure we're communicating as we go along in it. So unless you have questions for me now, I'll turn it over to Christine. And if not, I'll be back if you have any questions for me. So
Great. All right.
thank you very much,
Thank you.
Christine.
Thank you. And I'll apologize, there was a little bit of a snafu. We had a PowerPoint presentation, but no projector with us. So we have the presentation that you all should have, and this is actually good because it'll keep it a little bit more informal. The presentation's very brief and just kind of gives an overview of VRE and our extension. And I'll just walk through a couple of the pages, and then, but please, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask questions. If you want to just turn to page 3, I don't think this is any news to you, but just some basic statistics about VRE and what our role is in the region, particularly addressing the peak period and rush hour congestion mitigation. Our service area is parallel to both I-66 and I-95, which everybody knows are heavily traveled corridors in the region. We do use the existing right-of-way, so we are efficient in using an existing transportation resource to move the people. And if you look at the map, you see that yellow is our origin stations, and in the Manassas line, our current terminus is the Broad Run station. There's another big dot on Manassas and Manassas Park, and that travel shed is really focused on areas to the northwest, west, and southwest of Broad Run. So it encompasses the entire western end of Prince William County, including the town of Haymarket. Going across 66, we have a number of riders from Dominion Valley. So part of our focus on establishing a Gainesville Haymarket extension is to really provide better opportunities for service for a lot of those riders that are living in western Prince William County. And if you turn to page 4, Doug mentioned our system plan. The overall goal, and you have a brochure, the folded brochure that gives you some more detailed information about the specifics of the system plan. But our goal by 2040, if the system plan is implemented, all of the recommendations is to double our ridership. It focuses on several ways to do that. One is to add service, expand the frequency within the peak period, and continue to serve our core commuter market, but also to look at new markets for service, including expanded midday service and reverse peak service, so that we can provide a greater span of service. We have a lot of people that wish for there were more midday trains. There's often requests for reverse peak service. And then finally, the other market is to expand the system. Doug mentioned Spotsylvania and, of course, the Gainesville Haymarket extension. We see that as a very strong growth market with population and employment in this part of Prince William County projected to increase 30 to 40% over the next 20, 25 years. So we see that as a way that we can continue to provide a regional solution, continue to contribute to the reduction of congestion in I-66. I'll just point you to one fact on slide 5. We had a study that was done by the Texas Transportation Institute that looked at the impact of VRE, and their analysis showed that VRE and expanded service, that the levels of service that we're talking about in our system plan, could reduce the I-66 rush hour delays by up to 30%. Right now, VRE service provides the peak period equivalent of a lane on I-66 and a lane on I-95. With expanded service, we could double that, so provide the equivalent person-carrying capacity of 2 lanes of highway traffic. So we believe that we can make a significant contribution to the Northern Virginia region to move people and connect people and jobs, and make efficient use of the existing infrastructure, since we would be using existing railroad right-of-way that's already in place. if you'll turn to slide 6, I'll just talk briefly about the Gainesville Haymarket extension. I think everybody's somewhat familiar at varying levels. An extension to Gainesville and Haymarket has been discussed going back to 2000, 2002. In our 2004 strategic plan, which was the precursor to our current system plan, there was some initial analysis and identified potential station areas, which are shown on the map here. They're not intended to be a specific site, but to generally identify based on the underlying roadway network and growth patterns where it might make sense to locate a station. We had done a previous study in 2009, which was an alternatives analysis that looked very high level at an extension, what the general order of magnitude at a very not even conceptual level of cost would be, what type of railroad infrastructure, but it did not get to the level of selecting station sites. We now have identified funding. We've gone through a procurement process and are in the last stages of getting a contract negotiated with an engineering consultant to initiate a next round of study, and that's the overall schedule shown on page 7, and the red area encompasses what will be covered by our current study. It will continue and update the work that was done in 2009, since there's been a lot of change since then, a lot of change in land use, a lot of growth in this, particularly in this western end of Prince William County, and looking at a fresh look at the different conditions, whether it's the population and potential travel demand, whether it's the site conditions at specific sites. So we'll be looking anew at information, but also going into more detail and specifically identifying and evaluating specific station sites, going out to the public with our candidate sites and seeking input on that. We continue to work with Norfolk Southern, who owns the railroad right-of-way, to match our needs with their needs for their freight service. So we will continue that dialogue and collaboration with Norfolk Southern. And if you'll turn to the page 8, that just gives you a little bit more detailed look at what our process will be in the current study. We'll begin with what we've called the planning stage, and that's where we will be looking at identifying the station sites, identifying the railroad infrastructure that's required, and developing initial cost estimates, actually starting with the estimates we had done previously, but refining those, looking at what it would be in today's cost. An important piece of that is the financial plan. Previous estimates had ranged anywhere from about $235 to about $298 million, which includes not only rail infrastructure, stations, parking, and equipment. We want to go back and assess what that is, so, but recognizing that it is a significant amount of funding, and we want to identify and review all of the potential funding sources. Those sources could be state funding. The Commonwealth of Virginia has a rail enhancement fund that's been used for other VRE expansion projects. It's also eligible to improve freight infrastructure. So being that this is both a freight and a future passenger rail corridor, we believe that could be a very competitive source of funding, and we would qualify as a project under that category. We'll be looking at federal funding sources as well. There's also possibility of Northern Virginia Transportation Authority. They are partially funding this current study. So as a project that benefits Northern Virginia and helps to reduce congestion in Northern Virginia, which is one of the goals of NVTA, we believe that that they've supported the project and will continue to support the project on its merits for congestion reduction. As part of the study, we'll also be developing a service plan that will identify look at our entire Manassas line. We currently have the service to Broad Run. If we introduce a branch to Gainesville and Haymarket? How would we develop a service plan? We expect that there'll be a lot of people that live between the B line, Gainesville Haymarket line, and the existing main line that may shift their location to a Gainesville or Haymarket station. So as part of the planning process, we'll be looking at the travel demand projections and making our best estimate of how people will redistribute themselves and what that means for service on the Manassas line and at the Broad Run station, because we do believe that we'll see some changes there. And we also want to look all the way in on the Manassas line so that we don't have trains that are filling up at the end of the line stations, wherever they are, and then the people in Fairfax County can't get on. So looking at different options for service patterns. It could be express trains. It could be what they call skip stop service. So taking a broad look at what type of service we need to expand VRE and to serve what would become the new Manassas line. Once we get through the planning stages, the end result of that will be the selection of a locally preferred alternative, which will include both stations, specific stations, as well as the railroad infrastructure and the service structure that's associated with that alternative. Once that is identified, we'll go into more detail with an environmental analysis that will comply with the National Environmental Policy Act. We'll start developing more detailed engineering designs, and it's through the environmental stage that we'll look at specific impacts that would result either within the railroad right-of-way or adjacent to it. That would be things like environmental impacts. You know, there are some sensitive areas just south of the town that we're aware of from previous studies. We'll be looking very detailed traffic studies to look at the impacts of any proposed stations in particular on the traffic patterns. We'll continue to coordinate with VDOT and DRPT on their I-66 multimodal project. We were just talking with Holly about the interchange reconfiguration at 15. We'll coordinate with that, as well as there's proposals for a grade separation at US 15 and the railroad. We will work with VDOT to coordinate that planning as well, so that everything will fit together as best as possible and minimize impacts to the environment, minimize impacts to neighborhoods, with the culmination being a record of decision, which will enable us to move forward. We'll also have what we're calling preliminary engineering of 30% design plans. That will allow us to then move forward. The next step would be final design and then following construction. The time frame for this current study, we're estimating 22 months. We hope to build upon the previous work we did and be as efficient as we can. But also we have opportunities built into the project schedule for public involvement, public engagement. So, wherever that takes us, there might be things that we don't know that will come up through that process. So we will address them as they come up. We want to be efficient in the study and not let it drag out, but we want to make sure that everyone's concerns are also addressed through the process. So that's the time frame we're working at right now. As we proceed, we'll continue to refine that. Once we actually have our consultant underway, we'll be providing more formal outreach to various stakeholders, residents, the town of Haymarket as one of the local jurisdictions and stakeholders in the project. And so you can look for more information, hopefully soon. We hope within a couple of weeks that we'll actually have our formal kickoff of the project.
Great.
So that is the conclusion of the overview of the project, but I'll be glad to answer any questions that anyone would have, or if I missed something, Doug, let me know.
Okay. We'll go around the table. Vice Mayor Aiken.
One of my concerns is that we've been fighting Virginia Power to not bring in power lines along the, basically along the train tracks there, where there's an area of ecological concern there. And So to now also have potential expansion of tracks there concerns me a little that we're fighting Virginia Power saying you shouldn't go there because of ecological concerns, but then to turn around and potentially support a widening of the tracks, which would seem to me to be at cross purposes, that we're saying no to them, but maybe yes to you. And so that's part of my concern, is that I'm wondering how this looks to Virginia Power, and how can we hopefully mitigate that. Because I don't want them coming back and saying, well, you're welcoming them, what about us?
Good question. We've had several conversations with Virginia Power. I don't think we have any insights any more than anyone else does, because I think they're keeping their process pretty close to
They
the
are.
vest. I guess I will say with our process, because we are complying with the federal environmental requirements, we will be looking at all of the environmental impacts, identifying potential impacts, and the process through that is to avoid where you can minimize and then mitigate any impacts. We will. There's nothing from our perspective that could preclude potential joint use of a right-of-way for an overhead utility and a railroad. That the ultimate decision would be Norfolk Southern and Dominion Power. But if there are any opportunities like that where we could share the right-of-way, if that's what they select, and minimize any impacts, we would certainly look at that. So I don't know if Doug has anything to
I would just
add.
emphasize the first part of that, where the purpose of this whole study is to really identify what the environmental impacts could be, and then to see what we would do to mitigate those.
Yeah, and through
Through the implementation of our project. I'm sorry.
And through the environmental process, one of the things that you are required to do is look at other development and potential cumulative impacts of other development within the same general project area. So to the extent that we know what Dominion Power's plans are, at least in our process, we are required to take that into account and not just look at the impacts of our project, but likely impacts from a cumulative standpoint.
Okay.
Let's start with Chris.
We'll go over to the other side.
Wow.
Yeah.
Have you, in the previous studies, have you looked at any plans that would take the tracks over the roadway? I don't know how far you had gotten in 2004 or 2009 when you did the studies before, but did you ever look at taking the tracks over the roadway?
No, we didn't get to that level of detail in the previous studies. We looked at the general infrastructure required, which, and the width of the right-of-way, whether that was wide enough to do that, but we did not get into the specifics of looking at where grade separations might be warranted. That is something we'll be looking at in this upcoming study as we hone in more specifically on both refining the railroad infrastructure and looking at the interaction with the railroad and adjacent traffic.
Because you indicated that you may use the freight line that's there, and it potentially maybe putting up another line.
Yeah, that's what we'll be looking at. Norfolk Southern, their requirement for allowing passenger rail on any of their right-of-way across the country is that the passenger service not adversely affect their ability to operate their freight service. So we'll have to be looking at both expected VRE, both any initial service, and then through, typically we look at a 20-year horizon of what we would be operating and assess the capacity that would be needed to support the passenger service, but then also work with Norfolk Southern to identify their needs from a freight perspective. And this is one of their high-capacity priority corridors. So that will be a critical part of the study. As I mentioned, we are working with Norfolk Southern closely. We expect to be working with them closely and coordinating the engineering of the railroad infrastructure with them as part of this next study.
I just want to thank you and Doug for coming out and just sharing with us. And I appreciate the fact that you're giving us a little insight into what you're doing and your plans. So thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks.
Ms. Winfrey.
I apologize for coming to the game late, so I just want to say thank you for coming. Definitely, it's dialogue we've all wanted to participate in, and since I came in late, I'm going to go ahead and soak in this before I have any questions, but thanks.
Around. Councilman Fowler.
First of all, I appreciate y'all coming. I think rail service to this part of the county is long overdue. And all you had to be on 66 this morning at about 6 o'clock, where it was gridlock getting on to 66 as far as the eye could see. So if you can mitigate and take a rail service and it's equal to 2 lanes, I'm all for it. Just looking at this, I mean, I don't really have any questions per se, but, you know, I appreciate you all coming, and I'm looking forward to see what you all come up with, because I really think this community would be a big benefit, and I think the town in general would be a big benefit, and kind of make it a really walking town. I think it really fits what we're trying to accomplish here, so thank you.
Councilman Passanel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Christine, thank you so much, and Doug, appreciate you coming tonight. Excellent presentation. I think you covered everything that needed to be covered in an introduction. A lot of good information. We know where you're going, the things you're going to be looking at that are critical to a decision. So I'm looking forward to it. Everybody on this panel knows my bias. Yeah. But I think this is a critical project for the town and for Western Prince William, and I look forward to working with you guys going forward. I also like the fact that you showed all of the public meetings on the page 8. Excellent. I think the outreach and engagement is going to be critical to the success of this project. And again, I look forward to it, and I really appreciate you guys coming out this evening. Thank you.
I'll just say on the public and stakeholder engagement, we do show the public meetings, but also with the arrow at the top, we're trying to convey that it will be a continuous process. So as we move forward, if you want us to come back and update you at a work session or at a town council meeting, in addition to the formal meetings that we'll be scheduling for the project, please get in touch with us. We'll be in touch with Holly and the other city staff and the mayor to just keep you updated.
Great. And I think you mentioned it's about a 22-month process. So, and you've already started. I mean, it's.
We've started from a procurement standpoint in identifying our engineering consultant. We haven't. We're just working out some of the legal details with the contract, so we haven't officially started the actual planning work, but that should be starting within the next couple of weeks, have a formal internal kickoff, and then not too soon, probably about a month and a half out, we have scheduled a first public meeting to start soliciting formal input from the public.
Okay. And is any of this information available via the web? If people wanted to kind of track of what's going on?
It will be. We're in the process of updating our website, so we don't have a real good link to it right now, but as we're continuing with that, that is one of the priorities for getting better information on the website. We'll also be working with a consultant to help us build materials that people can use on the website. But we will be having information, and if you go to the website right now, there's sort of a section in the center like what's happening at VRE, something like that, what's new. We will make sure that that's Gainesville Haymarket when we do have information is up there, as well as once we have a set page set up, that we're getting that information out there.
Great. Okay, great. Any further questions? Again, we really appreciate you coming out and bringing this to us. Absolutely.
Thank you very much for having us. And again, we this is a dialogue. We want to make sure you're plugged in, and as we go through the process, that we get feedback from you and your constituency. So, thank you so much for letting us come out and talk about it. And be glad to come out now that we found a really good pizza place. Just
There you go, that's
So,
right. And to be able to eat in
definitely come out
town.
again, so.
Absolutely, great. Thank you, okay. All right, I guess you will, Mr. Henshaw, you had a idea of maybe making this meeting a little bit shorter this evening.
I believe that some of the staff just have a few points they want to bring out with their staff reports. I think if, once that is complete, if you'll allow us to move those up ahead, that'll allow them to go ahead and call it an evening, and then that way we can just get through the action agenda fairly quickly. Some would have to stay for the action agenda, but that's okay.
Okay, sure. We'd like to start then.
Well, I'll turn it over to Holly real quick to explain what's going
Okay.
on with some easements.
Hi. One thing before I get into easements is I do want to point out that there is an environmental public hearing for the Transform 66 outside the Beltway. That was the presentation where they came and talked about the hot lanes that will be coming into town. That public hearing is next Tuesday, June 2nd, at Battlefield High School from 5:30 to 9 p.m., and I believe there's a formal presentation at 7 p.m. So if you're able to attend, that would be great. And just to let you know, the box over here are the documents that we are a review location, so that there's a box over here for public review of anybody that wants to look at those documents. The easements that I want to discuss is actually on the last page of my report. I've been coordinating with Dominion Virginia Power regarding when they're coming in and placing these double stack poles. I'm sorry?
We're just looking for the page number, I'm sorry. 81, thank you.
Yeah, I was going to say. What I did is I met with them, and we went over the improvements that are proposed on the town hall properties and looked at the existing, the poles that were out there existing. And in order to put in our improvements, the poles in the current locations would need to be moved further back into the site. So I requested that they go ahead and move them back now so we don't have to pay to relocate them when we develop the Harover property or this property out here. So while they already sunk the poles on the Harover property, they did not connect the electric, so they're going to resink them further back in so that we can put in the a bike lane, the sidewalk, and street trees. It's going to stay in the same general location, but it'll be further back into the property. And then same with this one out here, we planned on, because when we added the left turn lane, we got rid of the bike lanes, we're going to have the sidewalks be 8 feet wide. So instead of relocating it in the exact same spot right behind the 5-foot sidewalk, we asked them to do it 8 foot. And so what that happens is that as they were going through it, we realized that they will need additional easements. And that's the sheets that where they sketch something out and to show you we are not ready for them to be signed, but they need to be moving forward with their work. So I've given them permission to go ahead and move them back, and we will get all the paperwork signed for the easements, and I wanted to run that through you so it doesn't catch you by surprise. But they're trying to work with us to put the poles where we need them so we don't have to relocate them at our cost in the future. So we kind of, I thought it's kind of quid pro quo. We'll work with your schedule and that way.
That's great. That's
Holly, good catch.
Okay.
And I remembered when they were here, I did ask them, and they said they've communicated with you and everything is...
Well, and what was going to happen is that at that meeting, we said we'll get together and discuss in the future. And then actually what ended up happening is I was going out, and I saw them doing the polls. I turned around, and I came back in. And that's what kind of initiated some of the flurry of activity. And it was funny because when I was talking to the project manager, she's like, oh, yeah, we were doing stuff by 29. We'll be coming back into the town soon. I was like, oh, no, you're in the town. You're in the town. We need to meet. And so we did. I met with the project manager and the field coordinator. I've actually met with her twice. We had the initial meeting. We visited all the locations. And then we also came back and looked at some of the plan sheets that we have that would help them both here in town and other places as well.
Good job, good job.
Yep.
Have there been any polls that we needed to move, not just necessarily back, but move, because, in our projections of new driveways or anything, they may be in the middle?
On Town Hall property, no, we looked at that, and then what I did is I took all three alternatives that are being looked at for the Harover property, and I could identify where the current location was, and I was like, there's no driveway interfering with the location on any of the three alternatives.
And how about right there by Washington Realty, where the pole is right at that small road?
This one right here, part of the plan of this master plan is to shut off that entrance.
Okay.
And what they're going to do when they put that pole, because we did talk about that pole as well, is they're going to do some clearing there, and they're going to move it a little bit further over into the, it's not going to be on the pavement of this area right here, but it's going to be moved towards us. The pole is going to be moved towards us a little bit, so they'll do the clearing there and put the new pole right at the corner, like right at the edge of what's the existing pavement now. And then we will be removing, because that entrance is so unsafe. And, but that, because they have to put it next, they have to put it in the same general location, that pole is currently, it's not on Town Hall property right now, but I think that when they shift it over, it will be slightly, it's going to be put in a similar location, though. That makes any sense. Now, if you look on your thing, you'll see the easements span the length of the property. It's not that they're adding any new poles, but the reason the easements span both the length of the property here, so it'll be covered in an easement, and on the Harover property is because they string the lines. They want the lines to be in an easement as well. So when you see that it spans the length of the property, it's not that there's tons of poles there. They're not proposing any additional poles.
And it's not the Jamaican style on the poles.
They said that there would, of course, be the temporary measures, but I think the end product is supposed to be. I mean, and they're high. You can see some of the ones that they're going to be high. And because of moving the pole back on this property, it's going to go over the building right here. So.
Oh, that's good. Again, well done. Good catch.
But I just want to let you know, so you will be seeing the easements, because there'll have to be a public hearing on the easements and all of that, but that's going to hold up their schedule, so I gave them a verbal go-ahead. I want to let you guys know, give you a heads up, so you're not caught by surprise.
Yeah, I was going to ask about schedule, how they were doing on their schedule, so.
I don't, like I said, they had started working, and then I know I came in and I threw the monkey wrench in. So I assume they're going to be going back to work here soon. I don't know, because like I said, they'd already started within the town. They went on the Harover property, they went by the vet. They were doing over in front of Giuseppe's.
Foster's, Vice Mayor.
Quick question, what's the cost to the town or to a streetscape program for moving a pole, approximate cost?
Well, it varies depending on the number of utilities and the height and all of that stuff on it, but easily $10,000-$15,000 for just the regular poles, and now these are going to have higher transmission lines, so they'll be more expensive, so I wouldn't even be able to guess on that price.
We could be talking $20K or
Yes.
so a pole, and we're talking about at least 4 to 5 poles that are being moved now at no expense to us to
Right.
accommodate us in the future. So that's $100K or so that potential savings.
Potential, exactly. Now, yes, because you actually have two, there's also one pole that they're going to be adjusting that is right off of the Harover property. It's in between the Harover property and Blight Drive, but it's the property that we don't technically own. There's that pole. They're going to be shifting that one to accommodate it as well, but that wasn't technically on Town Hall. It's an existing right-of-way. So there's those two, and then this one here, it technically wasn't, we wouldn't have necessarily had to relocate that one as part of our project, so I would say there's 3 poles.
Okay.
I have a question. Sure. You have a question?
I do.
Go ahead.
When you talk about the property along Blight that's not ours, the site plans have come forward and been approved. Did they consider the site plan for
Yes.
that house on the corner?
I gave them the site
Okay.
plan, and when we talked about relocating it, we marked off, they're actually going to move that pole a little, they're going to move it, what it is that in order to get everything to fit in, the pole has to be 17 and a half feet from the current white stripe. So that's how we're working, and they're going to relocate that pole. And actually, they're going to kind of rework one. It sounds like they're going to move one of the poles on QBE, the one right there at the corner. They're going to move that in further too, because that's already in the right-of-way, and they're going to move that in to line that up a little better as well.
Yeah, that was a great catch, Holly.
Good.
I'm curious about getting through the tight spots in town. Have they talked to you about any traffic plans or anything like that?
No, they've already done single lane closures, non-peak hour,
Right.
and it locks up traffic. As a matter of fact, one day, I think it was Wednesday, not only was traffic backed up, but then there was a fender bender right here in front of Town Hall. So people couldn't even get through.
It was awful.
That is the only, for the work that they're doing that is right next to the street, that is the only alternative for them to do. There's no,
No requirement for a flagman, or?
they've had flaggers.
Oh, they did?
Yes, I
Okay.
have seen the flaggers, and they've got the walkie-talkies, and I've seen them putting them on any approach streets as well. So, yeah, there have been the flaggers, the single lane closures with flaggers.
Mr. Mayor, can I?
Yes.
Holly, has there been any communication with the other utility companies as to when they're going to remove, how soon after they're finished, they're going to remove their lines in order for those old poles to be taken up?
No, if I remember correctly, when Dominion did come and talk to us, they said they have like up to a year, and even they don't know when that will happen, so I can't venture a guess when that will happen. If I could, I would.
Do we know if the onus is on the power company to reach out to these vendors, to these contractors?
Well, it's my understanding that they have a central tracking unit, and once they're done, that they update the tracking system to notify the sub-utilities to come out and work. That's all I know.
I think she said it probably wouldn't be finished until sometime next winter,
Yeah.
meaning after January. So it's going to take a while.
Again, thank you for working on that
Yep.
line too for Hunting Path.
Yes, and hopefully, yeah, there's some tree trimming that we need because of the utilities, and I pointed out to the Dominion folks as well as we're doing our site visits,
Yeah.
that needs to be trimmed. So.
Good, okay. Any other questions for Holly? Great, okay, all right, thank you. Denise? I would like to know your cell phone usage over the last 3 months. I can only imagine of how many phone calls you take.
I couldn't tell you that,
Yeah.
but actually. I'm going to start with the business coffee and conversation. That was held on Monday, May 18th. Well, I'll list the concerns of the town businesses that evening. The possibility of the new sign ordinance being too complex and difficult to understand, not having directional signage for those businesses located in the I-1 district, and also there was concern about the a possible service road from Route 15 entrance of Cat Valley Way headed towards the next level fitness. The town manager, Brian Henshaw, addressed all of those concerns and said that they will be addressed in the new sign ordinance, and the town businesses were told that we'll have the draft by the end of this month. Regarding the possibility of a service road, Mr. Henshaw also told them that we do not own that property. That is, there's a different property owner for that. So they would have to address those concerns with him. Yes, it would be a private agreement. Health and fitness added to that. June 1st, there will be a one-page ad in the Haymarket Lifestyle magazine. And also, we kind of got some free advertisement in the Gainesville Times, as well as in this month's Haymarket Lifestyle. So I mentioned all of the events in there as well. And then the Caboose tours, what you see there. Also for the Health and Fitness Day, I just received confirmation today from the events coordinator with Novant Health, and they will be giving out free screenings here inside the town hall on the Health and Fitness Day. And these screenings are for the three most possible preventable diseases. So they will be giving blood pressure checks, height, weight, A1C, and BMI. So that's for hypertension, diabetes, and obesity. And I was told today that having these screenings out of pocket can cost as much as $85. So this will be these will be free screenings that we'll have inside Town Hall on the Health and Fitness Day.
That's 85 per person that receives the screening?
Yes.
Wow, that's great.
The average cost out of pocket is about $85. So to be able to have these screenings here free of charge to the public is a great addition to our Health and Fitness Day.
It's gonna be inside here?
Yes, it's something that they need to have indoors because they're going to have screens and there's other stuff that they need, and they need to have access to electricity. And I was told that it works better indoors versus outdoors.
Yeah, the heat might affect it.
Yes. And it's a non-fasting for the A1C, so you could have already eaten for the day, and they will prick your finger, and it'll still be okay. You'll still get results. And all the results you'll get that day. So they'll be able to print out the results and give them to you that day.
And would it still offer some level of privacy for individuals?
Yes, there will be privacy for the individuals.
Okay.
Yes.
We'll talk about that.
Okay, absolutely.
What are they going to screen again? You said blood pressure?
Blood pressure, they're going to take your height and your weight. They're going to do your BMI, which is your body mass index, and also the A1C.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
So those screenings it's geared towards hypertension, diabetes, and obesity. And those are the three most preventable diseases that we have.
Okay.
So they'll be able to also give you information if you're
Close.
kind of off the right,
Or
off
close to
off the track to get you on the right track, gear you towards where you need to be.
Any other questions for?
Yes, I have one concerning the service road that someone had mentioned during the business coffee and conversation. Is this something that as a government office we could initiate the contact and maybe even later on pass it on for them to talk to each other?
Is it Brian?
Brian?
That'd be something we could facilitate, yeah.
I think it does mean more to them if we initiated the contact instead of having a business owner search and look for another business owner and get the right contact.
Essentially, what we can do is we can try to facilitate, bring the two property owners together. Ultimately, the property, the actual
Owner.
business transaction would have to be
True.
a privately agreed upon
True.
venture.
Thank you.
A question for you, Brian. The two signs that we have in both, the one at the museum and the one at over on the Hariver property, can we utilize those in order to now advertise for our next event for HEAL? Maybe get some kind of banner to put in front of it that would be appropriate?
I think we have to research the contract on what the parameters of those. I know there were some issues with when they were originally set. I'd have to look into that and see if we can get a little bit of a understanding. I think it's our hope and goal that eventually we could be able to utilize those, but I can't confirm that tonight.
Yeah, I just think that it would be for our next event that we actually have this signage up, whether or not it be in front of it or including in part of it, but to advertise our next event. Yep. Okay.
And I have
Sure.
one more item that's not on the agenda, and kind of piggybacking off of what you were saying about advertising. I would like to request from council $2,500 from our general reserve funds for seed money to start advertising for the next, not this coming event, but for Haymarket Day.
I think we can.
That's all?
Yeah, it is.
Actually,
Yeah, go ahead, Denise. What do you need, Denise?
We'll talk about that tomorrow at the
Yeah.
Finance Committee.
Yeah, Joe will take care of that.
Steve. Okay. All right. Yeah. Go ahead, Brian.
Okay. Essentially, what it comes down to is when we took over a lot of these events and stuff, the goal is to get sponsorship, and also there are some applications and fees that come with those. However, that's not coming in. So what we're looking at is, as we're looking at the end of the year budget, we do have money that's sitting in this year's general reserve that if the council would be willing to appropriate to, would give us or give Denise the seed money that she would need so that we can go ahead and move forward with these. Hopefully the goal is actually that should be something that continuously stays there, but at the same time she needs, you got to pay for advertising up front of the event itself. So that's what we were just kind of looking at. With regard to that same general reserve, I think we basically just need to go ahead, we can work through finance tomorrow if the rest of the council, that seems to please them, and come up with the recommendation for your regular council meeting next week. But we also do have one other additional issue which does not affect anything that Denise is doing, but could potentially affect us as well. You might, for Mayor Leak and Councilman Vice Mayor Aiken, you might remember our fund with the MDCs. We did get the invoice back. I'm working with our colleagues. We do know that we do owe something for that invoice. I was under the impression we did get it into last year's budget, but apparently we did not. So we need to figure out a way to cover the costs that we do owe to Prince William County. Now, there's some discretion about what they estimated it would be and what we got the invoice for. So I am in the process of trying to work that out. But these are two issues that are coming in kind of late towards the year, but we have general funds that are sitting there that we could either use it or our general fund reserve. Let me clarify that. We can either use it or it basically goes back in the pot for next year.
Okay.
So.
All right.
Are the mobile radio funding in next year's budget?
That's something we will double check, but I thought it was in last year's budget as well, but we will make sure.
Well, if it wasn't in last year's, I doubt it's in this year's.
Yeah, it was, we knew that this came, last year we worked in an agreement, and they worked with us because it was not budgeted, but we basically were to budget it for this coming year.
I'm sorry, what's this for?
This is for the mobile data computers, basically the computers that the officers use within their, I'm sorry?
No, it just brings back memories. Go ahead.
It's the computers the officers use within the patrol cars. We have an access, a memorandum of understanding with Prince William County to utilize their service and network, or otherwise we'd have to carry our own.
Okay. Yep. Okay. All right. Any other further questions for Denise? Okay, great. Thank you very much. I don't think there will be an objection to make that as a draft motion to add to for next Monday's council. Okay. All right. Moving on to our treasurer's report. Ms. Sherry.
Good evening.
Hi.
Not a whole lot extra to report from last month. I just had a few items I commented on about where we're at with the budget. I don't know if anybody had any questions on that. Both of these items, actually.
Any other questions for Sherry? If not,
I just want to thank you for the answers you provided to me today.
You're welcome. We'll have a better idea, obviously, at the end of next month at the work session of where we're at.
Right.
As we're drawing near the end of the budget year. I did not mention, but we will have Mary Earhart, who's a CPA that we use on occasion or quarterly to help us out with items that we need, help clean up the budget at the end of the year, some questions Jen and I had, maybe payroll, things like that. She'll be coming on June 16th to sit down with us for the day.
Okay.
Go over some things that we may need help with.
Good. All right.
Yeah. I just want to say thanks for that second bullet.
Welcome.
It clarifies it, and everybody can see and understand, so I appreciate that.
No problem.
Any further questions for Sherry? Otherwise, we'll move along. All right, great. Thank you, Sherry. Our police report. Chief Smith.
Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
I come bearing no great financial savings nor any requests for anything special in the way of appropriations. So revenue neutral. The parking ordinance draft that's in your package, if I could just summarize that. I expect to be absent from the June meeting, so hopefully I'll be able to answer any questions that might come up in advance of that. Just to summarize the key changes, one is, and what started this was a mechanism to tow. And there's infrequent occasions where we have an abandoned vehicle on the street or in a public place that we can't get their attention with a ticket or two. As sort of a measure of last resort, we need to sometimes tow them. So this establishes that. The private property tow provision exists already, but this transitions to put the owners back on the private property owner to actually perfect the towing rather than the police department being involved. And it requires that they follow the provisions that are already laid out in the county code, which are pretty comprehensive, and for uniformity's sake, require the same things. For instance, if somebody carries out a private property tow, they're required to call the police communications within a specified period of time to notify them so that we don't get the call saying my car's been stolen. It can be headed off at the pass, if you will. The signage requirements, they're uniform so that the sign vendors sell the same signs to them as they do to businesses in town that want to post their property and such. And all those things are designed to a bit of oversight to cut down on predatory towing, which in some areas in Northern Virginia has been very problematic in terms of accountability. And these towing firms will sometimes hawk properties looking for somebody that just leaves a vehicle for a few minutes and they pounce. So this provides some control there. Handicap spaces really just changes the language and modernizes it from being called handicapped to persons with disabilities, which is the more preferred term. The response time to a citation increases from 5 to 15 days, which I think is just a more reasonable period of time to either contest or to pay. There's a provision in there it's designed to sort of forward thinking about town-owned property. In the future, as the Hariver property is developed, or perhaps here in time, there may be a need to have some ability to restrict parking, no overnight parking or no parking more than 5 days, so people don't use these facilities for commuting, whatever. This just enables the town manager, by a directive process, to issue those kind of restrictions you may want in the future, based on your guidance as necessary. And the last is snow emergency routes. It essentially just fills a hole in the donut. The county code has Route 15 and Route 55 in the existing ordinance, but as we know, they're not enforceable inside the town limits, so this just makes it all congruent. So any questions related to?
Just whether or not any consideration was given to, like, it was that RV camper recreation vehicle policy that was kind of more geared in the county towards the, waterways of the southern Prince William County. And I know that they allowed it to come and extend to different areas of other areas, but it was only by, resolution. And so I was just wondering, for example, Green Hill Crossing has that for the Gainesville side, and adopted that through the county.
The town code encompasses that now.
Okay.
Yes.
So that's all included?
It's not changing.
Great, okay, good deal.
I have a couple questions, great. Relative to fines and what have you, on page, page 57, we talk about a fine of not less than 35, no more than 100 for each offense. So I'm just curious, do we have a fee schedule for that, or is that under the officer's discretion? Who makes that determination? Packet page 57. Let's see, section 4688, item A.
It's printed on the ticket.
Okay.
Already.
Mm-hmm.
The discretionary range then is really in existence for a judge if a person appeals it and it goes before the general district court. The judge, for whatever reasons in their inherent wisdom, could make it more.
Okay. All right, good. And I did have a question on page 59, section 4696, which is great. I mean, obstructing traffic by failure to have snow tires or chains. Being a former, I guess, essential employee back in the day, trying to get to a train station or operate trains for the public, mass transit, are there any considerations for folks like emergency services, workers like that going to report for work, who wouldn't be subject to this provision?
The short answer is it is not spelled out that way. I would certainly hope that an officer would use appropriate discretion in that circumstance, but it's not in there in black and white.
Is that something we might want to consider putting in there, or we'd rather just leave it to the discretion of the...
I defer to counsel first just to make sure that we're not exactly mirroring something that exists in state code.
Right, this does exactly mirror state code.
Okay.
And I think that the chief's suggestion that that be handled by discretion, officer discretion, is entirely appropriate. So I would not want to try to mess with the language of this. And clearly, it's going to depend on the circumstances as well. I mean, if you're getting out there in your Fiat, you're blocking out 3 lanes of traffic, I don't think we're going to have a lot of sympathy for you.
Right. Give the mice a ticket.
Okay.
Good, thank you.
Questions for the chief? This side? We're all good?
This side?
Well, I mean, there's one side or this side?
Oh.
Yeah.
No, sir. Okay.
I
Yeah, the
did
right
have
way.
DVPs.
3 other quick points if I could make.
Sure.
The in-street yield to pedestrian signs, I work with Holly. We've secured the VDOT permit for those. They're on order. They're expected to be in within 5 to 10 days, so you should see those soon. As I mentioned before, one will be up at Madison Street and one over here at Fayette Street on the center line of Washington Street. So we'll test those out.
Great.
What's the replacement cost?
You said you'd cover them. The Cruiser has been repainted. It's setting out here. It gets the graphics applied tomorrow, so it's not complete by any means. But if you see it on the way out, it's sitting outside here. And we had an opportunity, just to real quickly mention, in terms of history, it had been in the capital improvement budget to buy a trailer. We have a need, and with the additional events going on in town, to move traffic control equipment back and forth from the garage to these sites. And we've used personally owned trucks and things. And we also had a trailer that was here only by virtue of Officer Shaver's father. He left it here with us being able to use it. Talked him into selling that to us. And we have the funds in the vehicle repair category remaining in this budget. So we're going to go ahead and purchase that. That removes any of the liability concerns, and we can keep it loaded, ready to roll, and we can mark it. So we'll be seeing that into our fleet here soon.
Great.
So, that's all I have.
Okay. Any further questions for the chief? Otherwise, thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Sorry, we were just acknowledging the dirty looks from the treasurer to the chief. And then I get them sent my way because he came to me to ask. So.
Okay.
Always the last to know.
Yeah. Have our town managers report, or?
Mr. Mayor, I don't have anything to add. I was more just trying to say then we could jump to the action agenda items, and then that should get us out of here in a fairly decent hour. I'll be happy to answer any other additional questions of the manager's report if you have any, or if you want to, you can just get with me between now and the regular meeting.
Oh, good. Why don't we
I
see if
will
we can-
notice of item. I will be out next week, so I will also not be able to be here at the. I'll be watching, but I will, and I can be caught on phone if Jen needs to call me and stuff, or one of you need to call me. But I'll be available, but I will not be physically here. So.
Understood. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I do have one question.
Sure.
It jumped out at me. I was reading about the town center change order. So just What does significantly mean?
Significant.
Yeah, I know. I tried to get away with that myself many times.
Yeah. Essentially, what the change order is when we originally went out for contract for the town center master plan improvements. At the time, there was a great need to get the stormwater and the actual site engineering going more than anything and stuff. We would come back. The theory was always we'd come back and either go out for a separate bid for architectural services, or we could possibly do an add-on. So we've been working with our consultant and engineering firm, RDA, and they've suggested some gentleman, an architect, who can actually perform the architectural services for the town as well. So the bulk of the add-on is that. It's the adding on of architectural services. Rather than getting into the details of the numbers at this point, I'd rather not do that because we're actually still very much in negotiation with RDA. There's additional some engineering that also needs to be done that we're just looking more of as this is having a little bit more insight and a little bit more foresight into the layout of the town center property. One example that's in there would be the fact that we have a power pole back here that we know is probably going to need to be replaced at some point. We're looking into, well, let's figure it out to lay down the conduit if we ever wanted to bury that line, so it was completely clear on it. So it's issues like that that are being added, and it's just unfortunately not as inexpensive as I think we had originally hoped.
And it's significant.
And it's very significant.
Okay, we'll find out.
Okay. Any other?
Yes, Brian, maybe for Chief too, do we need to give an update to the council of the meeting last week?
Oh.
It was a public meeting. Yes.
Oh, yeah, I can comment
Please.
on that. Yes,
Thank you.
we did have our first council and police chief committee, search committee meeting. Went very well. We basically hammered out the job description, and at that time, advertisement is actually up on our website currently, and it's going out in all local newspapers. Well, it's going out in the local newspaper this week. It's also up on state organizations, for example, like VML, the Virginia Association of Chiefs of Police. We also have a couple other a couple other important sites or sites of that criteria where we might be able to find a candidate pool.
Thank you.
Great.
Did you have participation from some of the people we recommend to contact you to get on that from our various communities?
Well, yes, we actually have 3 citizen representatives serving on this committee. Mr. Bill Hunt, which I know you're familiar with Bill, Mike Manning, and also Bradley Marshall, who's an assistant to the Commonwealth Attorney. Mike Manning works for the Loudoun County Sheriff's Department.
Okay.
Yep. Yep.
Any further questions for Brian? Otherwise, we'll go through these action items here. First item, our 6735 Fayette for special use. Looks like we have a recommendation in there.
Is this the one they were asking for 2 more years? And you guys, the staff is recommending a yearly increment, right, Brian? 6735.
Yes, it's an annual renewal of a special use permit for trailers associated with the preschool.
And just FYI, that's based upon prior council's preference to do it every year, just even if it's just a cursory review. They didn't want to do any long-term stuff, and I agree with keeping it yearly.
Yeah. Vice Mayor Aiken, actually, if I can add, actually, Planning Commission it's in your packet, is actually recommending an annual renewal to the, no?
No, an automatic renewal.
Sorry, an automatic renewal, right.
August through August 27th.
Through August 2017. I'll just do it
What
for
does
that.
that mean, automatic renewal?
It just happens.
Essentially, there's nothing really changing on the site per se, and so what Planning Commission is saying, rather than going through this process every single year, let's just make it an automatic renewal until a certain time period when either they are looking to, we're ready to move, or they've grown, or they've thought of another
That
solution.
contradicts what Vice Mayor Macon just said.
Well,
Aiken just said.
but doesn't the automatic renewal, can't that be stopped if we so desired?
Yes.
So it makes it a little simpler, but at this time next year, there is an automatic renewal unless we decide to stop it. So it puts the onus not on them to come to us asking for another year. It puts the onus on us to stop it, or else it just automatically goes forward. So we still have the control.
Is there a fee involved with them applying?
Yes.
So if it's automatically renewed, it eliminates that fee?
That's correct, sir.
How much is that fee?
I believe, off the top of my head, like $350.
Should be in there.
There's a public hearing on it as well.
This is a public hearing.
Right.
Yes, sir.
It is.
The nature of the permit, I believe, if you look at the restrictions, if there are violations, the zoning administrator can take action.
Right, so this helps them out by not having the additional fees, and we still have full control over it if we decide to not renew it.
Yeah, it looks like it's $500, if I'm reading it right.
Every year they've been paying $500?
So if there's no objection, we'll have this on the consent with the recommendation. Is that what I'm feeling from the council?
Yes.
Yes.
Mayor, it does have a public hearing.
Right, but, okay, right, that's right. We do
But,
too.
yeah.
I just want to say that I think they did a very good job on this traffic mitigation plan. I'm just curious, does that seem to work pretty well? Oops.
Green light. Maybe it's red. There we go. Oh.
I wouldn't characterize it as optimal, but it's good considering the conditions there, yes.
Okay.
And they've been very willing to work with us when we pointed things out.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Our next item, our ARB appointment and our BZA, might as well consider both of those as well. So I think we'll be taking action, obviously, at our next meeting for those items.
Any other candidates come forth?
I reminded him again.
Yeah, but nothing, well, that's all we can do.
But wasn't there an issue where you had instructed for it to hold off until?
It was only tabled for the one meeting because
Okay.
Councilman Passanello wasn't available, but we'll definitely be taking action then.
Mr. Mayor?
Yep.
One of the suggestions that we are exploring, I have reached out with them and are in the process of trying to set up a meeting currently. So with regard to the BZA, so I don't know if that would affect any of your decision as far as moving forward. That could be a lengthy process, and within that time, you may have a case that could possibly go from front of the BZA. So I don't know. I'm just forewarning you now that there might be a reason if you wanted to go ahead and appoint. I think that would be fine, but we are exploring another option at this time, and there seems to be some interest.
Okay. And this is through the county, if my understanding correct?
That's correct.
Yeah.
So that would basically do away with the BZA or the need for one in town?
No, you would still have a BZA. We haven't worked out the details, so that's the reason why I was being somewhat vague, not because we just don't have the details. If I had to characterize it, essentially what we're looking at is the town would essentially appoint the county as the BZA, the county's BZA as their BZA. What you would end up being or getting is basically that would be a third. Basically, you'd have complete. I'm having trouble thinking of the word, but it basically would be Could you help me out here?
I'm not quite sure what you want to say there, but basically.
It's
yeah,
fair judgment. That's where I'm trying to go with it, but.
Right.
It's subjective.
You would have a group of folks that are familiar with the BZA process and are doing it on a much more regular basis than your BZA. That would be the idea there behind that.
Would there be any cost savings?
No, it would be a wash in terms of the expense to the town because you would, they wanted, that was the county's first question too, is how, are you going to pay for this to the town? And so, yes, we'd pay the same thing. That would be the staff cost is essentially what the cost is.
Is that a unit cost? No, I'm kidding.
Okay. Well, the word I was searching for desperately, unfortunately, is impartial. But what I was also trying to get at is, yes, we would continue to staff because they would need someone to represent basically and explain the situation. They would look at it from a subjective viewpoint, and basically any of the time that was, we would essentially be responsible for their time that they took up the case. But they currently meet on, I know, at least at minimal, a monthly basis. So,
Wow, okay.
So you're saying that, make sure I'm hearing it right, this BZA would be a neutral party, if you will, separate from the town, where if we had something that went to a BZA, it would go to the Prince William County, not our in-house, if you will.
It's almost as if it's contracted out, right?
So basically, we're looking to contract the BZA.
essentially, that is the case. I mean, this is ultimately a policy decision that you all would have to make if you want to keep BZA cases here locally. If so, that comes with the consequences of having to go through appointments, and regardless if they roll on or off, it'd be that. The other thing is, I think the only other, side view, not getting into the pros and the cons so much, but you would have a BZA that meets on a more regular basis and a lot more familiar. Now, keep in mind, you can send all of your BZA members to certified BZA training for the state and have them trained, so it doesn't matter if they are meeting annually or monthly, they still have the training. But once again, these are policy decisions for you. At this point, it is all speculative. We are only exploring the options. So really what I'd rather do is, before we really get into a philosophical debate about it, allow me to actually present some information to you all to consider.
But it doesn't give up, does it give up the autonomy of the town?
No. Keep in mind what a BZA actually is. It's basically a quasi-judicial body. And so essentially what they're doing is they're hearing the case from strictly the zoning standpoint. Was the zoning ordinance applied in the correct manner? That's just one example. That's the primary example.
So it really doesn't give any power to the county. It's just either you're meeting the regs or you're not.
Did the zoning administrator apply the ordinance as it's written?
So the town attorney would still represent the town at this BZA hearing?
That is correct.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yes. If our town planner, Marshawn Snyder, was needed, he'd be there to present what how he acted. The applicant would still go. It would just be like having a BZA meeting here. The only difference is the fact that it would be at Prince William County, but considering the frequency of which we have these meetings, I think that's why it's at least at the point we should at least explore it. But that's not to say that's the best direction.
Right, absolutely. Know the options. Right, okay.
So,
Good deal. Okay.
good.
Our next item, our 2016 budget.
So do we separate them? Separate these two?
Yeah, exactly. They'll be on the agenda to discuss and to hear much else.
Consent agenda.
Oh, no. Yeah.
With regard to the ARB appointment, though, I think you could move forward with that.
Yeah.
You could go consent agenda.
Okay.
I'm comfortable with that.
I'm good with that.
All right.
Steve?
Our 2016 budget, tax rates.
Mayor, could I point out a typo?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Please.
It says 2016 budge, both on the cover sheet and then on page 24. It's one of those Typos that spell check won't pick up. Save the letter T.
We saved that T.
Toner.
We were trying to
Toner
save on that T.
Steve was in charge of buying the toner.
We will get that taken care of.
I guess, I have a couple of questions, though. I haven't been around for the last couple of weeks, so we'll talk, I guess, more about this tomorrow at our Finance Committee. But could you go to page 26, the resolution itself? At the very top, we talk about one work session. I'm just curious why we wouldn't say in that declaration, Martin, that we've had a number of Finance Committee meetings, because to to Sherry, Steve's, and Brian's credit, I mean, there's been a number of meetings that we've attended, and I think it's important for the public to see that as well, that it hasn't been just one, how shall I say, one work session. We've had public meetings for the Finance Committee, which have been probably 3 or 4 at least, or maybe more. Okay. So I'm just wondering if maybe we should include that in the resolution.
Good point.
Okay. The other thing is on the personal property tax rate, and maybe I'm missing something here. Don't we have a moratorium on that? So why are we, are we just showing it because we have to?
Yes, we have to show it, but we can we put a note in that?
Remember, that's only the first 20,000. If that is exempt. If you have a Lexus or some huge
I'm not like you.
expensive car, you are paying this for everything above 20,000.
I think we're talking,
I
different
think
things
we're
here.
talking about, bottom line is we don't collect it.
Right.
And so we don't need to actually designate that it's on any kind of moratorium.
Yeah, because
There
in the
could
present-
there could come a day when essentially the town may need to reinstate that.
Right.
And so
Okay.
it needs to be shown as a tax rate, but that doesn't mean that we're going to collect it.
Well, only because in the presentation it shows continued moratorium, so it didn't show the percentage rate that you had done for the budget hearing. That's the only reason why I raised it.
Was that only the town share?
I think so. That's the point. So just thought I'd raise that. And I know you've made some adjustments to the budget. I just had a chance to kind of go through it the other day. So we'll talk more about it. But am I correct in the number being an additional 146,500? Is that right? Okay. Did you want to speak to any of that for everybody's benefit here?
Sure.
Then we can
Really,
talk about
essentially, Planning Commission, as they worked through the capital improvements plan, there were some projects that were included in the budget, but they were actually built into the operational costs. We've since taken those out, added them to the capital improvements plan, which was designed to take from the reserves, if you will. Just when you start adding those numbers and pulling to try to get it, that's one of the reasons the number has gone off. There was also some capital improvements that I actually accidentally looked in an oversight because I thought they were built into the budget, but they weren't even built into the operating budget. So that is another one of the reasons why we had some additional increases to it.
Yeah, further comments here?
Oh, we'll have some more discussion tomorrow, but thank you.
Okay.
I'm good.
No problem. You good? Mr. Cottle, any questions or comments? This one for Councilman Morris?
No, sir.
Okay. All right.
I might need you to.
That's fine.
Okay. One of the other issues that we've had come up with the budget is our ATL funds, which is I'm going to let Jen, our town clerk, who typically works with this, these are fire grant funds that we have, and it's going to create somewhat of an issue with the budget. So I'm going to let Jen explain that, if you don't mind.
Absolutely. We've started working with Prince William County to disperse those funds between the 3 fire stations that service Haymarket. They cannot collect them in this fiscal year, We currently have 29,200 sitting on our balance sheet in restricted assets. And we have 10,000 we collected in FY15, which we will move to the balance sheet. The problem is we do not have it in the proposed budget. The total would be 39,200. As we go into the new fiscal year, if we move that money, we will exceed 1% of the budget and therefore require a public hearing. So we're asking, we just started working with Prince William County, so this is kind of fresh and new. So we're asking if we could amend the budget by that number so we don't have to, it just takes away the need from advertising a public hearing to amend the budget.
Gotcha.
1% would be $34,000. This is $39,200. And we're just trying to save some money on the other end.
Thoughts about that? And I assume like Evergreen, which is volunteer, but they're not able to receive these monies?
Prince William County has to receive them on behalf of,
that's right.
and then
Okay.
Evergreen will be dispersed the funds, and I worked with her today. That was made clear that the 3 stations is
Okay.
how, at this point, we wish to proceed.
Okay. We don't
So
have
that'd be
any-
a change that we're proposing to actually make from today in your budget as presented in the work session to your final packet.
Okay. All right. Our next item, the waiver of fees. I think it's pretty self-explanatory, at least the request is. Any thoughts or?
This appears to only be one day,
Yeah. That's where I was confused.
not like a regular meeting or anything. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Then I don't have any objections.
I just wanted to mention, we don't really give waivers just because they're a resident of the town. We haven't done that. We sometimes do for nonprofits if they request it.
I looked at it as being the Ruritans, being a nonprofit organization. I didn't look at it as resident as much as the end user group.
I was just reading what he wrote because of a resident of the town.
Yeah.
That's why.
So,
Is that date wrong now? Or am I missing something?
It was already done.
Oh, it was already,
He went ahead and paid, and we told him when we presented it to council, if you decided to, we would refund.
okay. Fair enough. Thank you.
okay. So no objection, we'll put that to consent. Okay, all right. And I think we spoke about our amendment to our traffic vehicles. It looks like we have a recommendation in there as well. Any further questions? Otherwise, if there's no objection, we'll put that on consent.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Great. And we have item G, our zoning text amendment, page 62 in our packet there.
These have been on your agenda for quite some time. You've held your public hearing. We asked last month for you all to
That's right.
defer.
Right. Mhm.
And,
So we're ready?
Yes, sir.
We're ready to go?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So if there's no objection with that, we'll put that on a consent.
I do have a question for Brian on this. Relative to shared driveways at homes, there's nothing in here about that, is there? Only because of the experience at Haymarket Station, it does not work well at all. It's something I wouldn't would
recommend.
discourage me from buying.
Wow.
If I were a prospective buyer.
Councilman Passanello, I'm not aware of it, but I will get with Marchant and see if I can get you an answer prior to the meeting. If not, then that could always be something we could come back and add at a later date. But for the most part, these were the results of the parking study that was done. These are the actual ordinance changes, too.
And also, while you're asking him, I'm sorry I didn't get this to you earlier. On page 66, the crossed-out retail area, restaurant, court sports facilities, just wondering where that got moved to, if at all. page, right in the middle there, page 66, just lined out.
I want to say it went to more of a general use. It's up above retail sales and services and other similar uses not addressed, including shopping centers.
It's also the bottom of page 65.
Yeah.
Retail store.
Yeah.
And then it goes over to the top of 66, retail, other low-intensity commercial and personal resale services. I believe that's where all those things are
that's why it's
addressed.
with the line.
Yeah, I mean, all of this comes down to the International Transportation Engineers Manual on parking, and they slice it pretty thin sometimes in terms of distinctions between different kinds of uses, but I don't know that they do court sports facilities opposed to other sports facility. I mean, that seems like a fairly minor one, and so it's a good idea to get rid of that and just classify it like anything else.
Right. This is the one that has shared use in here, too, right? Yeah, I think that's a great idea, actually, so this is good.
Okay. Any further? And our last item, event committee. I'm sorry, didn't I? Yeah, that was just the report that we received, or was there something else that?
Yeah. I'm sorry. I was looking for the same thing.
Page 79.
All right. Yes. Right. Town clerk told me this might happen.
Yeah.
Okay. Essentially, what it came down to is back when the events committee was actually created, it was never actually a formal order of the mayor. We went back through them and looked at the minutes. So essentially, what I'm asking, Mr. Mayor, is you have two very willing and capable council
I thought
members.
we were throwing it open to the group first.
Yeah. But currently, I will say it this way, that Councilman Passanello and Councilwoman Swinford actually serve on the events committee, but it was never an officially appointed committee by the mayor. So essentially, I just need you to take, there's no action of council.
Right.
As the mayor, you can actually appoint that committee. So I'm hoping on Monday's meeting, you will officially appoint that committee. And if any other members would like to step up instead, I'm sure that they would step away.
Okay.
Be glad to step away.
There you go.
But other than that, that's really what we need. That way we can actually start keeping actual minutes. They are doing some other stuff other than just doing the planning of the events. So I think it's a committee worthwhile having, and they're already meeting and giving of their time. So
Great. Okay.
They have the most times on their hands.
Really? Mr. Mayor, can we speak after the meeting?
Yeah. Okay. I think that's it. What else do we miss? We're good? All right, great. And of course, there's a work session, so we don't need a motion to adjourn, so.
The Planning Commission, some of us are meeting this Thursday night here at 7 o'clock for a work session on the Harover property. Thursday at 7. You want to stop in? We're going to look at the three proposals and start kind of whittling it down to make it a little more concise. So that's this Thursday at 7. Yep, just so you're aware of it.
All right, great. That's it? All right, thank you all. Thank you for your time.
I'll try to be there.